Welcome back.
Welcome to The Past Made Me Do It.
I'm Kylie.
I'm Jamie.
We're here to talk about history, and we got a fun one today. I know I say that every week, but I like learning about different things, and this one's very different than last episode. So, yeah, it's good. But before we jump into the topic, let's go ahead and talk about what's been happening. Hey, 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 what's been happening?
I got a silly one. So last week I talked about zoos.
Yeah.
I'm back on an animal.
Is it Punch?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. It's Chesney the kangaroo.
What's this one?
So he's a kangaroo in Wisconsin. He got out from his home. I guess he lives on like a farm, and he was on the run for 3 days on the lam.
Wait, somebody had him on a farm?
Yeah, he's like with like a bunch of other animals. Yeah,
Why do they
he's
have
like
a kangaroo. Is that a normal thing
I think you have to have like special permits.
in Kentucky? Wait, Connecticut.
Wisconsin.
Wait, what? Okay, how did I already forget what state you said?
It's a petting zoo that he was
With
in.
a kangaroo, and so
Yeah.
he just ran away.
Well, he like got out from whatever gate that he was in, and he was on the lam for 3 days.
Imagine just driving past that and being so confused.
Yeah, and I guess the owners were just like looking for him for the 3 whole days, and like they found him at one point, and he was like, huh, 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 nope. And he like skirted around them, and they're like, oh my god.
He wants to be free. I wonder if he tried to kick them.
I think so. And I think Debbie Marland is like one of the ladies is her name. And they even used drones to try and find
Oh
him.
my god! But he's good now.
Yeah, they ended up finally like finding him. Cause he was just like chilling, and they finally were like, I don't think we're gonna find him. And then he was just like chilling by like a tree. They finally were like, okay, let's get him. And so they like,
Oh my god!
but yeah, he was just like in the woods, just running around, hopping around for 3 days.
It'd probably be easy to find him though, because it's like if you find a kangaroo, it's him.
Right.
It's not like when you lose a dog. There's a ton of dogs out there.
Right.
So, oh my god.
Yeah, they ended up, they're like, we're going to put like a bunch of mesh.
Yeah.
Make sure he can't get out again.
Yeah, probably a good idea. Well, did you hear about Hallmark Stars Live?
What?
Hallmark fans are in for a treat. The network will soon embark on its first ever tour where attendees will get to meet the stars from some of their favorite TV movies in person.
What?
So there's a bunch of Hallmark actors who basically are going on tour. And Michaels is partnering with them.
Michaels?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't understand. Okay. I guess it's just to meet your favorite Hallmark stars.
Huh.
But I know you like Hallmark, so
I do love Hallmark.
that one was like perfect. So if you're wanting to go see some Hallmark stars this summer, get your tickets.
Lacey Chabert.
Huh?
Lacey Chabert.
Oh,
She's the new queen of Hallmark.
okay. Yeah, I didn't know that. I don't know who that is.
Mean Girls. Gretchen.
Oh, she's still doing Hallmark movies?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay. Yeah, she definitely deserves to be queen because she's been doing them for...
Ever.
Well, maybe she'll be on the tour. So, go see her.
They always say never meet
Your
famous
idols.
people.
I think there's a few that I think I'd meet and I wouldn't be disappointed.
Mine will forever be Josh Cates.
That's a good one. I think Jonathan Bailey would be good to meet.
That's a handsome man.
I'd just be like, hi. I get all nervous.
I told James, I was like, he's gay. And James was like, what? No. I was like, yeah.
You didn't know?
He didn't know. Because we were watching Bridgerton. I was
Yeah.
making him watch it. We're watching it. And I was like, He is a gay man in real life.
Yeah.
Because he has so much chemistry with Kate on the show.
I feel like he's just one of those people who's really good at having chemistry with anyone.
Oh my God, I know.
He's like so charming. It's like,
right?
I think that's what makes him even more attractive.
Right?
Did you see him in that Jurassic Park movie?
Yeah.
Woo! With those glasses.
With those glasses.
He was so passionate about dinosaurs. Love it. Anyway, I feel like he'd be a good one to meet. But yeah, there's a few that I'm like, I would meet them. You know?
I think the only one I would want to meet is Josh Gates.
I would meet Gordon Ramsay. Love that man.
I mean, he would be pleasant, I feel
Jimmy
like.
Fallon. Oh my God. It's my crush. Anyway, why are we talking about this?
I don't know.
Okay.
Hallmark stars.
Hallmark stars, and then we talk about A-list celebrities. Okay. Well, let's get to the episode.
Oh, God.
We are kind of talking about Hollywood today.
Oh, no.
Because for some reason I was like, I want to do a bombshell. I want to do something with Hollywood. Like, I don't know why I had that, like, urge.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, Hollywood. Then it kind of took a little bit of a turn. Because then it was like, I don't know. I don't know who to do. I was looking at artists, authors. Like, I was going crazy, right? And then I was like, we haven't really talked about many singers. So that's kind of where I landed. But have you ever heard of the 27 Club?
I think so.
It's basically a group of like well-known musicians, artists, actors who all happen to pass away at age 27.
Oh, yeah.
So the weird thing about it, like there's a whole conspiracy to it, but like because most of them were driven by like high-risk lifestyles, mental health struggles, substance abuse.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes sense to me because it's like there's not many other ways you would die so young.
Yeah.
This is like a car accident or something.
Yeah.
Or a murder. But I'm going to be talking about someone from the 27 Club today.
Mm.
So somebody who had a short life. But
I have a feeling.
okay.
I know.
Well, there's dozens listed in the 27 Club. I'm not going to name all of them, but they kind of narrowed it down to the big six. These are like the most well-known of them. And I picked one of them. So there's Brian Jones from Rolling Stones, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, Kurt Cobain, and another icon. Do you know who it is?
Oh, I thought you were going to do Kurt Cobain.
Oh, no, but that would be a good one. Can you think of anyone else who it might be?
Mm-mm.
The icon we'll be discussing today is Amy Winehouse.
Oh.
Yeah.
She was really only 27?
I know. Isn't that crazy?
I had no idea she was only 27.
I feel like she looked older, but she just seemed more mature to me because of her voice.
Yeah.
So I was shocked too. I was like, what? Shout out to Basil, my husband. He came up with who I should talk about. He wanted me to give him credit. I was like, I wanted someone from Hollywood. And he's like, do someone from the 27 Club. And then I chose her. So anyway, a tragic life for sure. Lots of trigger warnings today, by the way. Lots of mental health struggles, substance abuse, addiction, eating disorder. There's a lot. So feel free to just kind of protect yourself. I will try to mention kind of when I talk about the eating disorder. I know that's a big one, but most of this is about substance abuse. So just keep that in mind. I had a lot of fun researching her, though. I didn't know much about her, but I've always loved her voice, and I've always loved her music.
Powerful voice.
Yeah. Valerie's one of my favorite songs ever. Rehab, so good. Like she's yeah. Her voice is beautiful. The sources I used today were, there was a documentary called Fatal Addiction. I really liked this because it dove really deep into substance addiction, kind of what causes people to get that way, how it's difficult for people to know how to help people in that situation. So it talked about her life, but there were mental health specialists and like psychologists who were on there talking about like people they've seen and the harsh situations that celebrities go through. So it was a really good documentary. teachrock.org had a whole entire biography about her. But then I also got a book from the library.
What?
Yeah.
Kylie reading?
Hey, I've been doing really good with reading. I read 10 books this year so far. was pretty good.
Those are good.
So I've been doing good. I've been going to the library a lot. But the book I read is called, sorry, I'm just pulling it up in Libby. It's called Amy Winehouse in Her Words.
Mm.
And it's really cool because it was kind of a collaboration of like her parents.
Oh.
They were divorced, but when she died, obviously, they kind of came together, created this foundation, which we'll talk about later. But in this book, they have a ton of like journal entries from her, pictures, like family pictures that they took. There's a lot of songs that she wrote in it, like of her actual writing. And so it was a really cool book because like it was their perspective of who she was, which I liked because it wasn't like the news perspective. Like it wasn't like the media's perspective, because we'll talk about it, but she got dragged by the media. People really saw her in a bad light. But I feel like people sometimes forget celebrities are human.
Oh, all the time.
And she's a really good example of that. And so just being able to kind of see like her parents talk about her childhood, who she is, and like her strengths and everything, I think was super important, because like the other sources I found, they didn't really focus on that. Mm-hmm. You know, it was just like her addiction, her ex-husband, all this. So I thought that was a really cool book to read. But yeah, it's called In Her Words, and a lot of it is just like pictures, but you get to see her handwriting and like her songwriting process. There's a couple things I'll talk about that I screenshotted. But then when I was researching, a podcast came out like literally like 5 days ago. A podcast of her ex-husband getting interviewed.
Oh,
He's
really?
never done an interview before.
Seriously?
It's like the stars aligned. And I watched it last night. It's called We Need to Talk, and his name is Blake Fielder. We'll talk about him. Mm-hmm. Not to spoil things, but he's basically who gets blamed for her addiction.
Oh.
And so it was really cool listening to the podcast. It was like 2 hours long, so it was really long, but it was his perspective of what the situation was, and we'll talk about that at the end. Okay, so let's dive in.
Oh.
So, born September 14th, 1983 in London, England, to a Jewish family. She had a brother named Alex, and they were raised primarily by their mother, Janice, who was a pharmacist. I believe Alex was 3 years older than her, so they're pretty close in age, but it was just the two of them. Her father, Mitch, was a taxi cab driver, and so he was just gone a lot.
Yeah.
And so that's why Janice kind of became their main caretaker. Amy grew up listening to 1950s jazz and artists like Ella Fitzgerald and Frank Sinatra, which heavily inspired her future sound as a musician. When you listen to her music, you can definitely hear those jazz influences.
Yeah.
Her mom divorced her dad when she was just 9 years old. And this was the same year that she developed a girl group with her friends called Sweet and Sour.
Oh.
Which was inspired by, I think it's like Sugar and Spice. And so they were like, oh, Sweet and Sour. And they would perform for school assemblies. So they were like celebrities at their school. So I love that. But she developed an early fascination with the arts, but was expelled from the Sylvia Young Theater School for wearing a nose ring.
What?
So one thing about her is she always kind of bent the rules a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
She hated authority. You can see that a lot in her interviews too. When people talk to her, she's just kind of like standoffish. She wasn't like, I don't think she was media trained like how celebrities are these days.
Yeah.
But she did not care what anyone thought of her, and she was not there to be fake.
Yeah.
So I respect that about her, but that was her in school as well. She was like super creative, outgoing, but like she was not afraid to stand up to the teachers and like, you know, stand up for herself. So at age 14, she learned guitar and was writing songs already. And she loved to draw and write stories about what she and her childhood friends got up to. Usually it would be like getting in trouble by their teachers or running away from somewhere. But if she was ever in trouble, she would just sing. It calmed her. So she'd be in detention just like singing a song. I love that. She found school to be boring, but she loved films, musicals, novels, and poetry. And she was always advanced in reading and writing. There was actually a copy of her report card in the book, and it showed that she had like all C's and D's, but then it said on the side like, she's so advanced in reading.
Wow.
So her grades wouldn't reflect it, but like, because she probably didn't care on tests, you know.
Yeah.
But like she was pretty smart. So, and she loved to sing songs from Mary Poppins and Jewish hymns. So yeah, she's Jewish, don't forget. One thing that her parents talked about a lot in the book is that she made lists for everything. So she would write down her, for example, like if it was Christmas coming up, I guess she doesn't celebrate Christmas. If Hanukkah was coming up, or like her birthday, she would make a wish list and then include like prices, where you can find them. And then she would also plan out like where it would go in her room. Mm-hmm. So she just like made a ton of lists, which I relate to her on that because like I love a list. I make lists of everything, so I love that. But a lot of those lists are in the book, and it's really cool.
A good list.
I know, right? Gotta plan it out. She also listed all her goals, so she had a specific part where she was kind of talking about her goals as a celebrity as well. I took a screenshot of one of her mind maps, and this is about her inner thoughts about her friends and family. And so she drew like a whole map and like is basically just gossiping about all the people. Like she put Lauren, I feel special bonding, and then crossed it out. So I guess she changed her mind.
Oh.
But then she said that I can't read the name, but he can trust me and talk to me. And then she called her mom a beep beep. And then she said, these friends are depending on me. I'll show you it. It's kind of like a hot mess to follow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's all over the place.
So she made lists for everything. Oh, that's why I took the screenshot, because this is her report card.
It's like a diagram.
Yeah. So basically, like her teacher, this is just what her teacher said. She can have some wonderful creative ideas, but she's easily distracted and can often cause distraction for others. So relatable. Language is her strong point. She is an experienced, self-motivated, avid reader who reads regularly and with pleasure over a wide range of more demanding texts. And then it says she's an excellent performer in drama class. So they actually focused a lot on the positives. But yeah, they had to say that she gets distracted easily. So she has a creative mind. That's what happens.
What? Makes sense.
Yeah. But poetry was her first love. So she wrote haikus a lot. Those were like her favorite. And there's a lot of poems in the book. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's kind of what she did before she started writing music. And then it turned into music writing. And let me just say, like, I was looking at a lot of her songs and lyrics for the songs. She's an incredible songwriter. Like, she really is. Very creative and everything. So yeah. I recommend, like, she only has 2 albums. Listen to them and read the lyrics. Because she deserves it. Like, she was only here for a short time.
Yeah.
You know? So she also attended weekly acting classes, and she starred as Rizzo in Grease. That was always one of my dreams.
I can see that.
I know, right? It's perfect for her. And when she got older, she would argue with her dad, and then he used this as an example because she would be like, "Hold on, can we stop arguing for a second?" And then she would get her songwriting book and write down like some ideas that had to do with like their argument. So a lot of her songs were solely inspired on like situations with people in her life. The other thing I found interesting is that they explained a lot that like the second she would release a song, she would not want to listen to it and she would let it go. Like she would put it in her past.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like her way of releasing something. Some artists, if they hear their own music, they might be like, oh yeah. But no, she like, if it played somewhere, she would leave. She didn't want to hear it. Because she kind of just felt like she already put it out there. There's no need to revisit it.
Yeah.
So that would probably be hard as someone who released, pretty big songs that were all over the radio.
How do you like go about playing it in concerts though?
I know, because she still has to sing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that was like her thing. Like she was kind of stubborn with it.
Yeah.
And like in interviews, she wouldn't even talk about what a song meant because she's like, there's no point in talking about it. It's out there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, she's very strong-willed, as you can see. But she also wouldn't share any of her work with anyone until it was finished. So no sneak peeks, nothing until it was completely done. She wanted to be like fully proud of it, basically.
Hey.
Yeah. During her teenage years, she developed a love for hip hop and artists like Salt and Pepper. That's what it is.
Yeah.
What did I call it? Sugar and Spice. Is that another group? No, Spice Girls.
Spice Girls, yeah.
Okay, well, Salt and Pepper is what inspired her group Sweet and Sour, which would also influence her future sound. She kind of like mixes jazz and hip hop together, which is pretty cool. And she ended up working as a show business journalist for a while, which she actually enjoyed a lot. But during that time, that's when she started creating more music, and she didn't really share it with a lot of people. Like, it was never her goal to be famous. She never wanted to be famous at all. She didn't want the spotlight. Like, that's just not who she is, you know? But her best friend was like, girl, you're so talented. And he ended up sending her demo tape to an A&R person, and she was immediately recognized by record labels when she was just 16 years old.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, like, the UK record labels were, like, fighting over her. Yeah. And she's only 16. So,
oof.
She ended up being like, all right, let's just do it. Let's make some music. So, she signed up with Island Records and released her first album, Frank, in 2003 at just the age of 20.
Wow.
Yeah. The album blended elements of jazz, hip-hop, and soul and put her straight in the public eye as a real talent. It was a smash hit and skyrocketed to the top of the charts. It was not released in America. So at this point, she was just a UK-based artist.
Yeah.
So, she was also nominated for the Mercury Music Prize in 2004, which was like a huge deal. And the lead single, called Stronger Than Me, was on the top of the charts and won the Ivor Novello Award for Best Contemporary Song. So she was winning all kinds of awards from her very first album, which you don't really see a lot.
Right.
She loved all the attention for a little bit, but she promised that she wouldn't let fame change her. So at first she's kind of like, this is kind of cool. Like, people are recognizing my talent. But she's like, I don't want to be like too famous.
Yeah.
This was a quote that she wrote when she was a teenager. Mostly, I have this dream to be very famous, to work on stage. It's a lifelong ambition. I want people to hear my voice and just forget their troubles for 5 minutes. I want to be remembered for being just me. And so, you know, at first she did want to be famous, but as she becomes more famous, she does not, you know, so. And at that point, you're already out there. There's no turning back.
Yeah, the pressure is all-consuming.
Right. But the producers from that album, Salam Remy and Mark Ronson, became like her best friends. They were the only people who she felt like really understood her music and kind of like the ideas she wanted to put out. So she became really close to them, and they continued to write music together. And she also had lots of new popularity and was definitely starting to feel a little bit anxious about it. People were kind of starting to follow her around. Photographers were lurking, and she's like, oh no. So she could kind of feel like things were already getting a little bit crazy. One night, her life changed forever when she met a music video production assistant at a bar, and his name is Blake Fielder Civil. He introduced Amy to hard drugs, starting with heroin. Okay, so...
Oh, straight out the rip.
Yeah. When I listened to his interview, they asked him specifically if he's the one who introduced her. And the way he kind of words it is like, he wasn't trying to force her to take anything.
Yeah.
He had kind of already had some struggles with like alcohol and a little bit of drugs, but he was not an addict at the time.
Yeah.
And media likes to portray him as an addict who dragged her with him. And that's just not the case. They kind of became addicts together.
Well, it's like... you kind of just, you start it, and then of course she came in and was like, I want to try that too.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's kind of a two-way street.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I do feel bad for the blame he gets, but I think like people, they want someone to blame, especially when it comes to substance abuse. Like, who caused this problem? But also like the party scene in the UK is a lot different too. And
dude, that's a tough drug to start off with.
Yeah, starting with that. Oof.
Dude, that if you start with that drug, it's bound to end in absolute tragedy.
Right. And he said at this point, when they first met, the only thing she'd really dabbled in was marijuana.
Yeah, so. That's one thing to start with like marijuana, but like
to jump straight into heroin. Crazy.
That's like the worst. That and meth is like,
yeah.
Whew.
Yeah, they did pretty much everything.
Yeah.
Under the sun, but yeah, that's kind of his reputation, unfortunately. Their marriage was just kind of a shit show. But they both will say over and over again that they fell in love with each other so quickly. They feel like they were soulmates. They both have said that multiple times. And they kind of became addicted to each other because they felt like they understood each other. They both had... Yeah. She didn't have like a rough home life.
Yeah.
Hers was more so like the fame kind of getting to her.
Yeah.
Whereas he kind of had a rocky home life and he had already dabbled in some drugs a little bit. So they needed each other. Like he gave her the confidence that she was really struggling to have. She never really felt confident in who she was. From the second she became famous, people made fun of her looks because she didn't really care. And so she had like acne and stuff, and they would like, you know how the media is.
Yeah.
They're so harsh for everything. Yeah. They called her fat. She was not fat, but like that's still like, why are we talking about this? You know? So immediately she kind of was like, I have to have a certain look. Image, yeah. But I don't need that with him because he loves me for me, you know? And then she took really good care of him. And so they kind of were codependent on each other.
Yeah.
That's the best way to describe it. But the night that they met, they played pool. He said that she was very good at pool and could beat anyone. So, and then he said that he didn't know who she was. Like he didn't recognize her. And when she said that she was a singer, he just kind of was like, okay, everyone here is a singer. in their city, Camden, it's like really popular to just like try to be a singer.
Yeah.
So he's like, all right. So it took him a while to like realize like, oh, she's a singer. She was kind of like, yeah, whatever. She didn't try to explain it much. So I love that he was talking about that because it's really cool. But she began struggling with drug addiction, and the British tabloids were all over it.
Always.
Yeah. It was pretty clear from the start, especially because this was the only thing they knew about him, is that he did drugs. And so they kind of took that story and ran with it. Her private life was exposed by the British press to sell magazines and get clicks on websites. She kind of at this point was like, okay, I need my own image. Like I need to kind of invent myself, especially if I want to stay in the media's attention. So this is where she came up with her like 50s, 60s American hip hop style instead of jazz focused. And this is when she created the beehive hair that I'm sure you've seen her have. And she had like very thick winged eyeliner as well. Those are like the two things she was known for. And she had it until the day she died. So she kept that beehive, she kept that eyeliner, and she released a second album. Back to Black was written in 3 weeks during a trip to New York.
Dang.
Yeah. After this, she was never well enough to complete another album, unfortunately. So really 2 albums, but they're both amazing. I was listening to them and I'm just like, wow. Just like hit after hit. She's so good. Back to Black premiered in October 2006, including hits like Rehab. And Rehab was her actual response to people telling her to get help. So that was like, yeah, I'm like, that song hits different when you really think of like, oh my God, she's literally telling people like, no, I'm not getting help.
Oh my God.
Trying to make me go to rehab. I remember loving that song as a kid,
right?
And not knowing what it meant.
Right.
She began to continue to tour exclusively and had multiple homes in the UK that were always dirty. She was known for just kind of being a mess.
Well, yeah, because she's on drugs all the time.
Exactly. She's not, she doesn't have it all together. And she's touring. Yeah, she's touring. She's on drugs. Back to Black was one of the biggest selling albums in the 21st century, and it brought her more fame around the globe. So this is where she kind of like appeared in other countries, and people were like getting a name for her, which is interesting because I didn't realize she was like a new artist when Rehab came out.
Yeah.
I didn't realize like that was like her first big hit in America, because that song was all over. That song like blew up. So yeah, it's just kind of interesting that it took the second album to do that. But then once the second album released everywhere, people went back to Frank and were listening to that one too. And so her music was everywhere. And the US release charted higher than any British female artist's debut album before it. So she skyrocketed in the US as well. She ended up winning the Brit Award for Best British Female Artist in 2007. And Back to Black is heavily personal and discusses her and Blake's tumultuous relationship. So there's a lot of songs that are like, oh my God, why are you guys together?
Yeah.
Because it's like a very intense, like, there's songs about fighting, and how you kind of feel like one person loves the other person more. Like there's just a lot of like toxic things in it. And so when you listen to it, you're kind of like, oh boy, they should not be together. And that's, again, how the media portrayed them. Like they just found them to be really bad for each other. He just continued to say in the interview that like he loved her and like they were really happy together. They like genuinely were happy together. And he didn't realize the songs were about him for a long time.
Oh no.
Because he would listen to it and be like, no, we're like super happy. Like, what? So I'm kind of like, that's interesting.
He's kind of oblivious.
Yeah. But then he'd be like, he said it takes a while to kind of like listen to the song a few times to understand what it meant. And then he'd be like, oh yeah, that was that one time.
Oh.
So yeah, they had a pretty toxic relationship.
Yeah.
They would break up, get back together, all that fun stuff. But she had to be with him. She felt like, and she told her parents this, like she was like, there's no one else out there for me. There's no one else that I want. I don't want to find anyone else. Like he is my person. And so like, no matter what would happen, she would always come back to him. She loved him so much and said that they were soulmates and he was a male version of her, which is also dangerous.
I mean, when you have that addictive personality, you think that there's nothing else.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you can't really change a person's mind with that.
It's true. It's crazy. But yeah, she always felt like he truly understood her. But unfortunately, her drug and alcohol intake began to show in her performances. She would oftentimes be too drunk to complete her set, and her team was trying to get her to rehab. Like, literally, they're like, go to rehab. And so the first time that happened, after Frank came out and kind of the drugs kind of kicked in before her second album, before she wrote Rehab, her team was like, go to rehab. Like, we're not going to do anything with you until you get help.
Yeah.
And then she ditched them, said, bye, I'll find a different company, and then wrote the song Rehab.
Oh, shit.
So that's what it's about. Yeah. So I was like, dang. But the documentary talked about how we tend to have sympathy for people who are struggling with like mental health. You know, we might be like, oh, they have PTSD or they have depression. You know, like we tend to have sympathy for those people. And when something happens to them, we understand like, man, they were just really sad, or like they didn't have the help that they needed. But then when it comes to like drugs and alcohol, it's like we don't feel bad for them. We're like, well, they can get help. They did this to themselves, you know. And I feel like that happens time and time again. Is like, where's the sympathy for people who have addiction problems? Because like, we might just be like, oh, they spend all their money on this, you know, they spend all their money on meth, whatever it is. But like that's a cry for help, you know. And so a lot of people don't feel the need to help them because they're like, well, they'll figure it out. They'll realize how dangerous it is. And most of the time they don't.
No, because they don't understand, because with comes addiction. Like they need the help more than anything, because they don't know when to stop.
Right. So I think it's just good to remember to like have empathy for everyone, and even celebrities. They feel out of touch, but they're humans. And like, we might look at them and be like, well, they're rich. She lives in a mansion. What could be her problem? She doesn't have a normal life, you know? And it's just really sad to not have that sympathy anymore because they're famous, you know? So I feel like in a lot of ways, it's not so common anymore, because we usually find out about the addiction after they get help.
Yeah.
And I think that's cool. Like, at least we've come a long way with mental health and with substance abuse, where like people know that they can get help, and then they usually will talk about it after. Yeah. But of course, there's going to be people out there who are still struggling with it and who feel like they're stuck in it, you know? So just something to think about, because I told a couple of people today that I was talking about her for the podcast, and like they immediately were like, oh, she's a mess. Like, she just has that reputation. Yeah. And it's just so sad, because like she could have gotten help, you know, like she could have still been making music. She would have only been in her 40s. Yeah. So it's crazy. But
it's really hard when they just fight it tooth and nail.
And she did. For sure. But, you know, that's another thing, is trying to love someone through addiction. Yeah. Because can take many, many, many tries. And her family was really trying hard to get her to get help. Her team was trying to get her to get help. So that is another thing that Blake made clear too in the podcast, is like he was talking about how like they all knew that she was struggling and they all really tried. Even he tried to get her to stop, but he was also battling.
Yeah.
And so it's like, what can you do to help someone when you're also struggling with it?
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
like you're trying your best, but yeah, like you also have to take care of yourself.
Yeah. So that's difficult, but
Yeah.
there's also a lot of issues with alcohol. And the thing about alcohol is that it's so accepted in society.
Yeah.
So if someone's drinking a lot, we don't always think it's an addiction. We're just like, oh, they're having fun with everyone else, you know? So it's a lot. I feel like I've never had any alcohol addiction issues, so I don't know what it's like, but I feel like it's probably more difficult than drugs because you can do it out in the open.
Oh, yeah.
And like you're with someone and they order a drink. You
Yeah.
kind of feel the need to order a drink. So I feel like it's probably more difficult
Well,
to stop alcohol.
Well, yeah, because it's so easy to obtain, to get a hold of it.
Exactly. You can, you drink something really fast, you know, it's, you can mix it with something like, yeah. And so that was another thing he was talking about, the abuse, sorry, not the abuse, the substance abuse.
Yeah.
Psychologist was talking about it and how alcohol can affect people for years without them knowing. You know, it affects so many things in our bodies, but because it's legal, it's just the hardest thing to quit.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
Yeah. And we saw that with Amy. She was able to kind of quit those hard drugs before she died, but like alcohol was always there.
Yeah.
So she began to distance herself between friends and family in the last few years of her life, and she was constantly scrutinized by the press. So she really couldn't go anywhere without a ton of photographers. So she kind of just stayed cooped up in her mansion and like stopped making music, basically. So, yeah. Her mental health issues were already there before she got famous, but then they just got worse. So she became incredibly dependent on alcohol. And in 2007, her and Blake went on a trip to Miami, and they secretly got married. This shocked the public and everyone they knew, because everyone was just kind of like, you guys just broke up last week and now you're getting married. But they looked really happy together, and she continued to perform after this. And she was actually kind of on a high for a while, where she was starting to look like she was doing better. She was feeling better. Blake talked about how like right when they got married, they were like, we're going to be sober together. We're going to change. And so they were really trying to like motivate each other.
Yeah.
But they didn't really have the professional help yet.
Yeah.
So it was kind of difficult to do that. So it lasted for a couple weeks, but obviously they're still battling the addiction. And this is also when her personality kind of shifted, where she just became so disinterested in everyone who looked at her. Like you see some celebrities and they're waving and smiling. Every single video of her, she's like looking at everyone like with a really bad look. She just hated when people were all in her business.
Well, probably too with like trying to get clean and stuff.
Yeah.
If you go cold turkey, that is going to give you like automatic just like withdrawal.
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like anytime she kind of stepped out and had those experiences with paparazzi,
Yeah.
she was like, I'm going to go drink, because that was stressful.
Yeah.
So it just kind of is like a constant spiral. But there was there's a few interviews where she's just kind of like not even looking at the person talking. She's chewing gum. She's just like, she wishes she was somewhere else. Like you can tell. But they're like, so how does it feel to be compared to all these big pop sensations? You know, he's like naming all these celebrities, and she's like, I worked hard to get where I am, and that's all I'm going to say. And then she just continued to chew her gum. Like, again, she just did not care about like how the media saw her, because she's just like, my image is already out there, whatever. So in the beginning, like when her first album came out, that was a little bit different. She was more willing to like talk about her songwriting process and everything. But just like as the years progressed, we got less and less of her speaking to the public. Amy, Blake, and a friend were arrested in Norway for marijuana possession in 2007. They were found with 7 grams and were fined $715. So it was just real quick, but that was her first arrest. And Blake was later sentenced to 27 months in jail for assaulting a bar owner and an attempt to cover up the crime with a bribe.
Oh my God.
So while he was in jail, she became even like crazier and like more depressed because she didn't have him. And people were so curious about her downfall and would make bank for selling any pictures of her that they could get, which is so sad. Like, how can we find her in her worst state? Let's sell that picture.
Yeah.
And they would make good money. This also happened during the start of social media. So around this time, 2007, 2008, we got MySpace, Facebook, all the things are starting to become more popular. And so a lot of access to celebrities was a lot easier. We were able to kind of see like what they do today, you know, immediately instead of finding it in a magazine a week later. So that's another thing to think about is like social media is also not helping.
Oh, God, no.
She would get slammed on blogs by TMZ and Perez Hilton. Anyone who could throw her under the bus tried. And 2 months after Blake's arrest, Amy was rushed to the hospital due to exhaustion is what the public knew, but it was actually a drug overdose.
Oh, no.
She ended up canceling all her tour dates, saying that she couldn't perform without her husband. So she's trying to kind of sugarcoat it as like, I need him there, but like really she's trying to recover.
Yeah.
In January 2008, a video surfaced of Amy smoking crack.
Jesus.
So she checked into rehab a few weeks after that. Yeah. But this is when it was found out that she had also been self-harming. She had cuts on both of her arms. Sorry, that's another trigger. We don't talk too much about that. But yeah, she was self-harming herself as well. So literally dealing with so much.
Good Lord.
Yeah. She said like in the beginning, self-harm kind of was just a curiosity. Like she just wanted to know what it felt like. But then it became a way for her to deal with the stress. And it felt like a way that she could kind of move the pain from like her mental struggles to her physical struggle. And she'd rather be numb from the emotional pain than like physical pain. So that's sad. But I think that's a reason why a lot of people self-harm.
Yeah.
So trigger warning again, we have an eating disorder. So she also started suffering from bulimia and began looking really frail. She would not keep food down at all. And kind of had this idea of just trying to be as skinny as possible.
Yeah.
I think there's also the media is constantly pouring her down. She's like, I need to be accepted by them more, you know? So she just kept getting thinner and thinner. Career-wise, though, 2008 is also the year that she won 5 Grammys. So during all this, she won Grammys for her album. She got the most of any artist that year. So
Dang.
She won 3 awards. Well, she won 5, but the 3 biggest ones were Best New Artist, Album of the Year, and Song of the Year. So she tied the record at the time for most wins by a female artist in a single night and was the first British woman to win 5 Grammys.
Dang.
But her body was being pushed to its limits and she wasn't taking care of it. She's constantly drinking, making herself throw up any food that she can eat. So that's another thing going on is like her mental state's already bad. Now her physical state is bad.
Yeah.
There's nothing positive that can come from this,
Yeah.
you know? She made public at the end of 2008 that she had an early stage of a chronic obstructive pulmonary disease caused by damage of the air sacs. So this would cause shortness of breath, coughing, and wheezing. Yeah. So that was another health issue she was having, and a lot of that is caused from smoking a lot. So she went back into rehab at the end of 2008 and really seemed like she wanted things to get better. This was like when everyone was like, oh my God, like she's really working on becoming her old self and wanting to do music again. So she really wants to recover. And during this time, her dad was interviewed and he said that she was doing a little better and that his biggest fear is that she will die from addiction. So that really hits. But he also explained that she has freedom of choice to do whatever. And even though he wishes he could do more, there's only so much that they can force her to do. He was like, I cannot kidnap her and trap her in a room because that would actually be abduction. He's like, that's a law here, even if I'm her dad. Yeah, of course it is. So he was just kind of like, we're trying to help her, but right now we're just happy that she's in rehab and she's doing better. She also was starting to look happier and healthier than ever at the start of 2009. And although she was recovering from hard drugs, she had not given up alcohol. But this is where she got rid of the drugs, basically.
Yeah.
And just focused on alcohol. So it's like we're getting somewhere. But her relationship with Blake ended in a bad divorce. There was, I believe, cheating on both ends. And they were just kind of like, let's just not do this anymore. Yeah. So from 2009 to 2010, she had a few issues, legal issues, a couple arrests, legal disputes, intoxicated misdemeanors. She's always getting in trouble.
Yep.
I don't know why this made me think of it. Did you see the video of Justin Timberlake getting pulled over? And they're like, so what were you doing tonight? And he's like, performing for a whole crowd of people. And they're like, what? In what way? He's like, I was on stage performing. He's like, I'm Justin Timberlake. It was just so weird. It was just so weird. Okay, sorry. I don't know why. He's like, I was performing. That's how I imagine it is, like pulling over like famous people. They're like, oh, sorry, I was just, singing. Anyway, sorry, not to make light of the situation, but that was a DUI that Justin Timberlake had. So I just thought of that. But obviously, this is not a laughing matter, but I just thought that video was interesting. But her drinking got worse and her career was really starting to suffer. She's not putting out new music. People are becoming disinterested with her other albums. You have to keep going,
Oh, yeah.
If you want to stay relevant.
Works. Yeah.
So her family and friends reached out for help. The tabloids constantly looked for any way to show her issues, and her friends and family were just trying to keep her together. In May 2011, she announced that she was going to get help for her alcohol addiction. She checked herself into a rehab and then checked herself out 6 days later, saying she was doing better and she's ready to go on her European tour. It was going to be like her comeback tour.
Yeah.
So this is my chance to come back. Unfortunately, it was not. June 18th, 2011, she performed in Serbia, and she couldn't even make it through one song. She was stumbling all over, and the crowd started booing her.
Oh, my God.
So she was very clearly very intoxicated. I watched the video. It's really sad to see. She, couldn't remember the lyrics. She, called her, looked like her manager or someone over, and talked to him, and then they changed the song to a different song, and then she started kind of singing, but then just randomly stopped, and everyone started booing her.
Oy.
Yeah, so that was not good. She could barely stand in the first place. She was rocking back and forth, and she was too drunk to perform. So after just a couple songs, the tour was canceled.
Jeez.
Yeah, her doctor was trying to get her into psychological therapy, but she really only wanted to work on physical health, I guess. She's kind of like, my brain is fine. I just need to get my body back to where it was. And so she was prescribed Librium to help with her alcohol addiction and anxiety. And so they were really trying to get her to try new things just to try to get this alcohol addiction away. But she returned home to Camden while she was slaughtered in the press, and she was seeking help and making goals for the future. It's just a constant, as it is for a lot of people with addiction, it's a constant battle between I want to get help, but I can't,
Yeah.
I need it, but I need to get help. And so she's just constantly going back and forth from being clean to not being clean.
Yeah.
So she kept relapsing and was unwilling to follow any doctor's orders. She's also stubborn, so that doesn't help. But
yeah.
So after not following her doctor's orders, she would then call them and tell them, no, never mind. I want help. I'm going to change for good. And they were just kind of are you sure? Because we're trying to help you and you're not getting anywhere. People started kind of losing their patience a little bit. But she was like, no, I really want help this time. She quit cold turkey, like we were talking about earlier.
Oy.
And was doing good for a couple weeks. And then one night she was hanging out with her manager, Andrew Morris, and she drank. And her body, what they say is that her body just kind of went into shock because she, it's her body was craving the alcohol.
Yeah.
But when she let it go, her body was trying to kick it out of her system.
Yeah.
But then she was found with 3 empty bottles of vodka.
Oh,
and so drinking that much, can put her body into shock because it's whoa.
That's alcohol poisoning.
Which is exactly what it was. So, unfortunately, on July 23rd, 2011, she was found dead by her manager.
Jesus.
The cause of her death ended up being alcohol poisoning. And Andrew was just kind of talking about how the night before they were watching YouTube videos of her old performances. He said that she was in happy spirits and he thought that she just might need some rest. And so she was kind of drinking privately. Like, he didn't even know that she was drinking. Because he probably would have stopped her,
Yeah.
I would assume. But she kind of slept in that morning and he's like, oh, okay, she just needs some sleep. And then checked on her again around 3 p.m. and realized that she was gone. So she was found alone on her bed with empty vodka bottles around her.
Jeez.
And yeah, so I think like we were talking about, a lot has changed nowadays with like addiction and getting help. Mental health is like more talked about now.
Yeah.
And so I think that like if all this happened nowadays, I think she would have actually gotten the help that she needed.
Yeah.
But it's sad. Like at that point, self-harm was a huge thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say trend, but I remember like a time in middle school where like people were talking about self-harm like it was nothing.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Like there was a time in those 2000s where like it was just normal to have anything going wrong with you and you just kind of like accepted it.
Yeah.
But like didn't know to get help from it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was also happening. But yeah, so after her death, her parents set up the Amy Winehouse Foundation. They help anyone who's kind of struggling with drug and alcohol addiction or curiosity in general, and just inform them of the risks and everything. And they run one of the only recovery homes for young women in the UK. They call it Amy's Place. And they also have a school's project to teach children resilience and the dangers of substance misuse. So they're they're still doing this. They're speaking to crowds of people and just like informing them of the dangers. So they also teach music therapy because they're like, we know music helped Amy a lot.
Yeah.
Growing up with mental health struggles and even through addiction. When she was trying to recover, she would go to music, and music therapy has a lot of things that can help with like kids' development. Mm-hmm. So they have classes for that too. So they're trying to keep her name alive still. It's been almost 15 years since her death, and they just know like the only thing they can really do at this point is spread information on how to get help and why it is so dangerous, because it's not always clear to see. So let me see if I wrote anything else about the podcast that he was on. I don't think so.
That's just so sad to see. It's always, because it just makes you think of just such great artists, of like if they got the help, what great music they could have done. Cause
I know.
I always think of like Avicii being one too. Mm-hmm. That like because I think he OD'd.
Yeah.
That like if he didn't OD'd, and that if he got help, and
Mac Miller.
So
many.
Yeah.
It's so sad. It is crazy to think about. I think she would have had the most amazing career. She'd still be releasing music today.
Yeah.
I truly do think so. The other thing I just want to mention from the podcast of her ex-husband, he just talked so highly of her, mm-hmm. and like truly loved her so much, and he's clean now.
Yeah.
Ever since her death, he got help. Like that was his wake-up call.
Yeah. Which is sad. That's what it took.
Right.
But I think for a lot of people that's what it takes.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so I think that's awesome. Like that he took that very seriously, and was like, okay, it's time for me to get help because I don't want it to end this way. Mm-hmm. And so he believes that she would have been at the same place that he is today. He mm-hmm. believes that she would have gotten help too, if that night didn't happen. So, but he says it's still really hard to see pictures of them together. He can hardly look at pictures of her because she's his best friend, and they were truly happy together. She even had a Blake tattoo. So, but I found that interesting because this podcast was literally recorded like a month ago.
That's crazy.
I know. I'm like, oh my God. And it's his first time talking to the public. I was so open about it.
Yeah.
So I don't blame him. I don't think it's anyone's fault. Addiction kind of happens on its own.
Yeah. I mean, it takes years of development.
Right. Yeah.
Of building, because it becomes an attachment of you.
Right.
And yeah, no matter how much you try to get recovered from it, alcohol is, if not the hardest one to recover from.
Yeah.
Because it's just so much, it's so easy to get access to.
And your body's so used to it.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But anyway, sorry that's a sad one, but it's important to keep her legacy alive. Because even though she had a pretty tragic life, honestly, short life, she was so talented, and like her voice is so unique. So I definitely recommend listening to her music and still supporting her. Now they say her music kind of, and like her books and everything, she didn't write books, but books that they wrote, like the one I talked about, all the proceeds go to the foundation. So
it's cool.
Definitely keep her name alive. There were also stories in the book at the end of people who the foundation like completely changed their life and saved their life. So
That's
she's
cool.
saving lives without being here. So anyway, sorry that's a tragic one.
Where can you find us?
You can find us on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at The Past Made Me Do It, and you can email us at thepastmademedoit@gmail.com. Sometimes we might talk about tulips. Sometimes we might talk about celebrities.
Catch us in a couple weeks and
we'll find out what's next.
Random topic. Sure, it'll be another random weird one.
I know, right? You never know what to expect on this podcast.
You really don't.
Just like with history. All right. Thanks for listening, y'all. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.